started. Just need to put that away. Okay, so first off, any changes to the agenda? If not, Councillor Busk.
Make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. So the first order of business tonight is we have a public hearing. So we will start with that. So first off, I would declare this public hearing open and state that this hearing is held pursuant to sections 230, 606, and 692 of the Municipal Government Act 2000 as amended. The purpose of bylaw number 03-2021 is to amend the land use district map of the land use bylaw 22-2007 by redistricting lot 1, block 36, plan 5928 RS, located at 312th Street Southeast from R1 standard detached residential district to R2 medium density residential district. The notice of this hearing was given in writing to the applicant, the assessed landowner and landowners, and the adjoining landowners, as well as the planning and development officer. The notice of this hearing was advertised on the town's website from March 1st to March 15th of this year. Presentations are to be brief and to the point. We'll start first with planning and development. At that point, then council will ask any questions that they have. Then we ask anybody in favor of the bylaw to come forward and speak. Council will ask any questions that they have. Then those opposed to the bylaw. Lastly, any person deemed to be affected who wishes to be heard. Anyone giving presentations from the public, please state your name and address, and we will get started. So we'll start with you, Sam. Sorry, Sam, is your mic on there?
No, I always forget about it. Sorry.
Nice.
So the purpose of this is for the public hearing for the change from R1 to R2. And the MPC heard this, reviewed the amendment, at the March 1st meeting and have indicated that they support the bylaw with a vote of 3-2 for approval. In comments back, I heard from 5 property owners through email and 3 through phone calls. All were against this application. The bylaw is being introduced so that Mr. Roberts can build a duplex on this site. And according to policy statements in the MDP, which indicate that the town should facilitate appropriate redevelopment or infill development to achieve higher residential densities within established areas. Mr. Roberts has indicated that he would like to develop the site to provide a residential housing unit for himself and a separate unit for his mother. The planning department feels that the rezoning of the site to R2 medium density residential district fulfills the statement in the MDP. Further, this increase in density would have no impact, should have no impact on the residential developments in the area, as a development will be required to provide the requisite on-site parking. Finally, there are R2 developments on 1A Avenue Southeast, just a block north of that site, that have existed for some time and appear to have had no negative impacts on the adjacent or neighboring properties. As such, the planning department has no concerns and recommends that the council give this bylaw a second and third reading.
Okay, questions from council? Any? Councillor Brandel. That should be you, yep.
Do we know from operations what the snow removal is like on that street?
So because there is a sidewalk only on one side of that street, the side that this lot is on is the snow removal or storage site.
The side the lot is on is the storage site.
Yeah.
Okay. So once that home is built, where's the snow going to go?
I don't know.
Still on their site, right?
Right.
Still on their site.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Other questions from council? Comments? As I see none, I will now ask those in favor of the bylaw to come forward and speak. Those in favor, please state your name and address. And Joanna, that mic isn't on. Apparently we got some technical difficulties with it. Jesse, just speak loud if you can.
Okay,
There you go.
There it goes on.
can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, basically I wanted to speak in favor of basically, I was going to start off with what our plan is going to be is there won't be any raise of density, even though it's going to be a duplex. It's going to be just almost like it may appear to be a duplex, but what it basically is a house with a grandmother's suite. So what that is my mom, she'll have her own garage door and her own entrance. Other than that, the way the building is designed is I'll have the one side plus the top floor, where she'll just have the one side in the basement. So it's very much like a house, but of course it appears to be a duplex and it's zoned as a duplex. The to me, and also driving up and down the road, I saw like as soon as you go driving onto 6th Avenue, the first to your left and your right are both duplexes. And then as you go down, so that's 516 to your left. It's kind of a yellow house, and to your right is a white one. So they're both duplexes. As you go down, there's 513, which is another duplex. And then as you go down, I believe 505, which is almost right across from me and down a little bit, is a duplex. And then just as the road turns where you're going towards Rolla Michener, there's 712 and 704, which are also duplexes. So on that street, there's quite a bit of duplexes, and ours will be, like I said, there's no intent on rent to use it as a rental property or anything like that. So it's basically a place for me and my mom to stay. For me, I don't know if you guys know, but I work in Wabasca 5 days a week. So basically, I'm only in Slave Lake 2 days a week, and my mother's, a single lady. So the intent on why we wanted to do this duplex or slash house with almost like a granny portal is that when I'm not around, the house is still there's somebody around to keep to keep maintenance or safe or anything like that.
Okay. Questions from council? Councillor King.
Just why this particular lot? Is there a reason that you chose this lot? Is there?
Oh, yeah. I had actually traded it with Bill Mazur I had a lot on the southwest side, 514 or something, but I had a trailer house and a lot on the southwest, and that lot, the trailer house had burnt down. Bill Mazur has a trailer court right beside where that lot is. I'm not sure the name of his trailer court, but he has a trailer court. So he was interested in that lot and to take care of the cleanup. And he had a clean lot on the southeast side. And me and the wife were talking over, probably the next couple of years that she didn't want to, like right now I live above Winks. So I own the Winks store on the southwest. We live above there. She just gets a little tired of the noise all the time, and that it's not really a home. It's, you're always kind of at work and you're always hearing, the loudspeakers and the banging of the door and, people talking outside, and, you're living above a store. So she, at some time when we were able to facilitate that, wanted to move into a quiet neighborhood and, and have a house. So other than that, basically Bill Mazur had that lot and we made our trade.
Other questions for council? Going once, going twice. Okay, thank you, Jesse.
Yep.
Anyone else in favor of the bylaw that wants to come forward and speak? Anyone else in favor? Mr. Stern? Sorry. Just leave it on the table, Ray. Thanks. Sorry for the benefit of those that don't know. Please state your name and address.
Hi, Ray Stern. I reside at 401 13th Street Southeast in Slave Lake. I'm to be the builder for Mr. Roberts on their property, and he's asked me to come and talk about a couple of technical issues that he believes have been raised as concerns. One of them being the building size and scope. The building that is designed complies entirely with the town of Slave Lake's bylaw. For example, it is no taller than any of the two-story homes in the area. It has to comply to the same bylaw as a single-family residence would have to. Site coverage is the same situation. There's restricted percentage of, or a certain amount of percentage of site coverage that you're allowed. We would have to comply to that as well. There was, I think someone had expressed a concern about windows in peering into the neighboring yard. There is a specific formula in the building code that talks about the distance from the property line, the square footage of the building, and how much of that is allowed to be glass. And that formula is the same whether it's a single family house or a multifamily unit. It's no different. So a single family house could be built on that property exactly to the same dimensions as the duplex, the same site coverage, have the same sidewall and the same amount of glass in it as the duplex. It'd be no different than a single family house. I think those were the concerns that you mentioned to me. Parking, yeah. The particular design we have actually has 4 off-site parking stalls for each unit. So a total of 8 off-site parking stalls. So both of them have double garages with full driveways in front of them. So, a typical family home here with the driveway restriction on a single family, you would basically have 4. So in essence, there's double the amount of off-site parking in this development than there would be in a single family development.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Stern? Councillor King.
More so for planning and development. Will there be variant setbacks for would this have to go to SDAB for?
Until I actually see plans on site, I can't answer that. My understanding though is that there is no need to go to SDAB at this point.
Yeah, we've designed it around the bylaw parameters. For example, the sight lines on the corner lot all comply in the design, the same as a single family would have to meet for the same site.
Perfect, thanks.
Other questions from council? Going once, going twice. Okay, thank you, Mr. Stern. I'd ask anyone else in favor of the bylaw to come forward and speak. Anyone in favor?
My name is Amy Wright Roche. I currently have an address at Box 23, Widewater, Alberta. I have been active in Slave Lake for over 33 years. Most of your kids I've seen through school. I've helped with elections. I would like to come back to Slave Lake to live here. And I think that this type of a development is very important, as a lot of your parents are reaching my age, and rather than them live alone in places, that this sort of a living arrangement is a valid one for Slave Lake. I know the Versloots are doing that in the northeast. And I would encourage you to look at this type of development as one that encourages family and community.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, I ask anybody else in favor of the bylaw to come forward and speak. Anyone else in favor? As I see none, anyone opposed to the bylaw that wants to come forward and speak? Anyone opposed? As I see none, anyone deemed to be affected that would like to come forward and speak? Anyone that is affected and would like to come forward and speak? As I see none and no last questions from council, I will declare this public hearing closed. For those that aren't familiar with it, public hearing is designed for council to get input. And then the report itself comes up a little bit later in the council meeting, and we'll make a decision at that point. So with that, we will jump into minutes of our previous meetings. So on page 3 in our package, we've got a meeting from March 2nd. Any issues with those minutes? Any changes that need to be made? Councillor King?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. We'll jump into minutes from the committee of the whole meeting on March 9th on page 12 of our package. Any issues or concerns? Councillor King,
Make a motion to accept the minutes of the committee of whole as presented.
any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. We'll jump into CAO update. Mr. Kim.
Good evening, Your Worship and the members of council. My CA update as of March 16th starts with the health and safety. So all town employees are reporting healthy from COVID-19 as of March 14th. We have received 1 new business license, and our planning and development issued 3 new development permits, prepared 5 council reports, and opened 7 permit files last week. The tender for FC Force Main project was closed last Thursday. The bid evaluation is currently undergoing. We are preparing information regarding the Gloatland Road project for the residents. In the near future, we are also planning a public open house to engage and inform the residents. The fire department received a total of 5 calls last week. And the seniors income tax clinic has been open at the town hall lobby, and it's running until April 30th. So far, we have received 6 senior clients. The track and field house individual bookings continue to be very popular as we filled all 28 spots for this week. Our economic development has been working on the business activity survey compilation and is also currently planning a new transportation survey and investor package. And with that, I conclude my presentation, Your Worship.
Okay, questions from council. Councillor Brendel.
So we are in bob and weave and obstacle course season with the potholes and the frost coming out of the ground. I'm not sure if we're still going to have another winter or not. We never know in March or coming April. So with the roads, I was wondering if we can get ahead of the social media and maybe put out a schedule and say, this is what we're going to be fixing and when, even a ballpark. And it might alleviate some social media in the future.
Through Your Worship to the councillor, yes, it is absolutely, and it is in the plan. Yes.
Okay, other questions from council? Councillor King.
Roland can probably answer that. The final billings that weren't done for February, did we contact those customers to let them know? Perfect, thank you.
Other questions from council? As I hear none or see none, we will jump into reports. So the first one is bylaw 03/2021. And that's obviously the one that we just went through. Sam, do you have anything new to report?
I do want to clarify, Jesse had said that the duplex is all down the street. There is one duplex on the 12th and 6th, and that is it up until Monday Avenue. There is no other duplex.
Okay.
That's it. But I have nothing else to add.
Okay, questions, comments from council? Councillor Brendel.
I struggled with this one because usually when we get so much feedback, negative feedback from the community, I pay attention. But a lot of the things in some of the residents' letter maybe weren't so accurate or anyway, the only one that I really paid attention to was parking. So I was glad Mr. Stern spoke up about that, because if there's double the amount of parking on there than a single family home, that makes me feel better about that. The only other thing that I had, my question earlier was the snow removal. Because there is no parking on that one side of the street. Maybe a question for the CIO, is that enforced? Because there is no parking signs on that side. But I tried to go by this area a couple of times in the last couple of days at different times of the day, just to see the congestion. And there were people parking on the side of the street that say no parking. So, if the sign says no parking, and if that was enforced, maybe that would alleviate some of the issue too, so.
Actually, your worship, to the council, yes, it is noted, and we will take a closer look into it.
Okay. Other questions, comments from council? Councillor King.
So residents have reached out to me, more so than we're in this package. I'm in that area literally every single day. It's very congested. So I do struggle with this one. I struggled with the parking, so I'm glad that was brought up. But yeah, I think I need to really take into account with this one, the surrounding residents. Because there was a lot of, Sam had about 10, I had another 4 or 5. So for some reason, there's a lot of pushback. And as much as I want development happening, I just don't think this is the right site.
Okay. Other questions, comments from council? I'll go and say, I appreciate that residents give us feedback. I appreciate that they come in a variety of forms. They have a number of concerns, and they've talked about parking, they talk about snow removal, they talk about whatever. I think a lot of times there's confusion about what can happen and what can't. And so ideally, at the end of the day, to be honest, even what exactly is going there is somewhat irrelevant. How they're going to build it, how they're going to do the parking. We have a whole process that exists for that. We have a planning department that has to make sure that all the variances are in place. They have to consider things like snow removal. They have to consider things like parking. That process already exists. The question is at the end of the day, can this site physically, does an R2 zoning, which, we have different designations within our land use bylaw from an R1 to an R4. If we were going to an R3 where you could have, 3 or more units there, obviously it doesn't make sense. I don't think the density, it doesn't fit with what's going on in that area. That being said, to have a duplex, we have a number of lots throughout this community in sporadic spots that have duplex. It's how we do infill. It's how we get things built. It helps to do growth. And so, I think that I have some of those concerns about parking. I have some of those concerns about snow removal, but realistically, we have a process that is going to address all of those things to make sure that they are done. And even if they're built, you can still end up to those problems afterwards. And we have another mechanism through bylaw enforcement to make sure that those pieces get looked after. So the question is to me, could this physically fit an R2 lot? Yeah, we have a variety of subdivisions throughout our community that have this type of infill. And so I am committed to economic development. I am committed to growth. I am committed to quality of life. And if this sees our community growing, I'm in favor. So that's where I sit. Other questions, comments, Councillor Busk?
I was just going to make a motion.
Go for it.
That bylaw 03/2021 to amend the land use district map of the land use bylaw 22/2007 by redistricting lot 1, block 36 plan 5928 RS from R1 standard detached residential district to R2 medium density residential district receives second reading.
Discussion. All the question, those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Next, Councillor Ferguson, sorry.
Bylaw number 03/2021 to amend the land use district map of the land use bylaw number 22/2007 by redistricting lot 1, block 36 plan 95 5928 RS from R1 Standard Detached Residential District to R2 Medium Density Residential District receives third reading.
Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. So with that, we will jump into the next one on page 32 in our package for waive variance and ISDAB fees. Councillor Brando, though, has please note in the minutes that she declares she's got a conflict of interest in stepping out. And so we'll jump into page 32. Sam, the floor is yours.
Okay, so the purpose of this report for council is to render a decision with regards to a request from the Municipal Planning Commission to waive the variance fee and the intermunicipal subdivision and development appeal board fee for the required variance to the side yard setback. The applicant is the lawyer for the landowners at the time, Matthew Hrenek, Braden Reynolds. The development permit fee would be $450 and the ISDAB fee would be $300. Historically, town council has waived these fees. However, it was mainly during the recovery process from the 2011 wildfire. So in March of 2017, these landowners came to the town and got a compliance certificate when they purchased the property. And then in February of this year, the owners, again, through their lawyer, requested compliance as they sold their property. They had not made any changes at that time. So when the landowner applied for the compliance letter, while reviewing the RPR, the development officer noted that the side yard setback did not comply and had obviously been missed in the 2017 compliance letter. In accordance with section 68 of the land use bylaw, the minimum side yard setback must be 3 meters. And section 62(2) of the land use bylaw states that unenclosed decks may project a maximum of 0.6 meters over or onto a required side yard. And as such, the required setback for the unenclosed deck would be then 2.4 meters. As per the RPR prepared by Compass Geomatics, the side yard setback of the unenclosed deck is 1.08 meters, and as such, a 64% variance is required. So when this application was taken to the Municipal Planning Commission on March 1st, they made a motion to have a report brought forward to council to waive all fees for this application. The MPC felt that this variance, if it had been caught in 2017, would have been paid for and dealt with the previous owners and not the current owners. And as such, through no fault of their own, they should not have to pay now.
Okay. Let's get into it. Questions, comments, Councillor King.
So I actually asked to bring this forward because I don't think that these homeowners should be responsible for paying something that was actually our mistake or overlooked. So I have no issues with this.
Yeah, it seems pretty straightforward. I'm guessing you'll make a motion then?
I'll make a motion that council waives the required development permit fee and ISDAB fee totaling $750 for DP number 230221.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay. If Councillor Ferguson, you want to open the door there and ask Councillor Brand, we'll come back. Jump into page 50 of our package, which is bylaw 05-2021, which I now have to step out for. So Councillor King, the floor is yours.
All right, Sam.
Okay, so the purpose of this report is for council to give bylaw 05-2021 first reading and to set a date for the required public hearing. The applicant is the town of Slave Lake, and there's multiple addresses, and I'm going to rattle them off real fast. 201, 205, 609, 709, 1112, 1104, 900 A and B, 800, 704, 608, 604, 600 Main Street, as well as 401, 501, 505, 1A Street. The purpose is to redesignate the subject lands from regional commercial to downtown. And this is for the municipal development plan. Currently, they maintain a regional commercial designation in the MDP, and as such, an amendment is required. This bylaw is being introduced for council for first reading. There's 3 plan amendments required to facilitate the application. And as such, amendments to the MDP, the downtown and Main Street area plan, and the land use bylaw are all being processed concurrently. To give landowners time to receive information about the rezoning and to inquire with planning about the changes, we ask for an extended time between the first reading and public hearing so that the public hearing would not take place until May 4th. So we will be communicating that through our website, that there'll be a longer than normal time of advertising rather than the regular 2 weeks. We'll do 4 weeks, and referral letters will be sent to each property owner as well as adjacent property owners. So this proposed amendment and process change aligns with council's strategic priority to grow business, increase economic development. And at this time, we recommend the first reading and public hearing set date.
Questions from council? Councilor Brandel?
Sam, did you mention 112 and 132 6th Ave? I'm not sure if you,
I'm sorry, I did miss that. Yes, absolutely.
okay. Didn't we already do that one?
You know what?
Didn't that owner?
That
come to
absolutely
us?
did come forward. I'm not sure how that got missed, but I was trying to make sure I captured all of the lots and didn't miss anybody.
Okay, so then
I
there
will
are,
remove that for the next reading.
okay. So there are some addresses missing along that strip.
Yes.
So that's because we don't want to make them
Non-conforming.
right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I am definitely in favor for this. I think all of our plans should be looked at on a regular basis and they're living documents. So I like that we're being proactive and looking at this and hopefully we can help some people out.
Mhm.
Councilor Busk?
I was just going to make a motion.
Go ahead. Oh, Councilor Ferguson?
So I'm in favor of the spirit and intent of this. I do have some concerns though, because by rezoning these parcels, the ones that are being rezoned will lose 11 different uses. So I am concerned, while in some regards we're drastically opening up the potential uses, that we're pulling back in other areas for uses that already exist in the C2 area. So I'd like to see as much red tape as possible removed for potential business owners. And I know we always do have the mechanism that they can always come apply to amend the land use bylaw, but for a lot of people, that's a pretty intimidating process down the road. So I see 2 ways to kind of accomplish what we would like to do. One is by looking at rezoning everything to C2, to C1, or perhaps adding additional uses to C2. So that way we don't have to do any rezoning, but we still accomplish the same thing that we want to do, and it might be an easier process. If that makes sense. Pretty quiet though.
Thoughts? Yeah.
So my concern about doing it this way is, we have discretionary uses in kind of each district that fit sometimes better for a different district or fit better for a different way. That way we could still pull all those uses over, but if they fit better as a discretionary use, so they have that additional oversight, we still have that mechanism through the MPC. And that's what I think the piece that might be missing here.
Did we have that discussion a few weeks back about adding that, or was it in MPC we had that discussion?
I can't remember.
And it wasn't a good fit to pull things over because of lots of land and
The
hotels.
differences in the districts are
Extremely different.
The plan, which requires the use for each district, is vastly different. And to change and you put all of those uses from C1 into C2 basically nullifies C1. And then why have a difference between have 2 different districts for the exact same thing?
The rationale would be that you can control the discretionary uses in one for ones that are better suited for which is current C2. Because if you just pull everything over to C1, there's some things that should probably don't fit exactly as well. So that way we'd have the discretionary use. And that way, when you're looking at the zoning map, you're not having random well, there's a C2, there's a C2, there's a C2. Everything's still C2, and we still accomplish what we want to accomplish at the end of the day.
So are you suggesting we scrap C1 altogether?
No, I'm not suggesting we scrap C1. I'm suggesting is we add a bunch of uses from the C1 into the C2. And then we would look to see what's better fitted as a discretionary use. So we still have some oversight there. That's my suggestion. So we just add a bunch of uses into the C2. So it still accomplishes the same thing at the end of the day.
Not really.
No.
And the reason I say that is because you make it discretionary, the MPC still has to look at they have to have a planning reason as to why they can't approve it. They can't just say, oh, we don't like it on that site. That doesn't work. There has to be a good planning reason. And the differences in the districts for C1 and C2, the requirements for setbacks for parking, all of those are different in those two zones. When you add those uses that are not meant to be in there into that affects the parking, the coverage of the lots. There's all sorts of aspects that doesn't get covered by uses.
So aren't we in effect though doing the same thing if we redistrict those from C2 to C1? Aren't we in effect doing the same thing?
Pretty much.
Somewhat, yes. But those lots would then become C1 and they would have to abide by those new rules.
Yeah, that's my only concern is there's some discretionary uses that might be better suited if we do have that control and that mechanism over it. But if that's not the will of the rest of council.
Thoughts? Any more questions? Councillor McGregor?
So I got to wrap my head around this. This is from like the south side of the tracks down. This is the stuff that I've been voting no against the whole time. Okay, fabulous.
Any more questions, comments from council? Councillor Randall?
Just a clarification. So Sam, you've got like a lot of you bring reports to us, you make it clear what the intent of the report is.
Yes.
This one doesn't say, we're moving it from C2 to C1. It says regional and what is it? Downtown.
So that's because typically what it is that's for land use bylaw.
Right.
And
No, and I get that it affects a couple of different plans.
Okay.
But I'm just making sure that when you send it to the public, that they're not going to know the difference.
Yeah.
If you maybe can give them like the C1 and the C2 uses.
Absolutely. That was my plan.
Show them exactly what, what they have now and what they could get. Yeah.
That was my intent, was to send the whole list from the bylaw of not just the list of uses, but as well as the regulations regarding the C1 and C2 districts, was to send those two out with that, as well as saying, we're amending the MDP, we're amending the downtown plan, we're amending the land use bylaw, and this is how.
Right. But if you just call it like the regional plan, they're just not going to know what
No,
it is.
they're
right?
absolutely not. You're right.
Yeah. If you could just explain that. Awesome.
Councillor Ferguson.
Okay, so I guess my final remark here is, so the fact that these properties are potentially losing 11 uses, would there be any appetite for my fellow councillors to bring back a report to look at adding those uses that they'd be losing? Because there's 11 uses. I went through, I counted them. They're losing 11 different uses from what they currently have right now.
Councillor McGregor.
If we just left it the same, then we wouldn't have to worry about those 11 uses. If we didn't need to change it all to C2, we'd be fine because those 11 uses would still be in there. It's been a long few weeks, man. I'm just trying to wrap my head around all of it. I'm not being sarcastic.
No, that's true.
Okay.
But they're also gaining uses in the C1. It's just, I don't want to give something and then take away back on the other end, if that makes sense.
Any other questions or comments from council? I'll weigh in quickly. I've always been a no from this from the beginning. I think if the businesses want to change their rezoning, they would come to us directly. And we're just taking this upon ourselves. And perhaps they don't want to change. So I'm not going to be changing my vote. Because we're changing plans and we're changing a downtown plan that we haven't even touched. So that's my thoughts on this one. We'll wait for a motion. Who wants to read that one out? No?
Make a motion that bylaw 05-2021 to amend the municipal land use plan map and the municipal development plan by redesignating said addresses from regional commercial to downtown receives first reading. The required public hearing be scheduled for May 4th, 2021. Do I have to put as amended, being that we've got an address in there that's already been looked at?
I would say as amended,
As
yes.
amended.
Call the
Receives-
question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Anything to add for this next one, Sam?
No, same exact thing, just the downtown plan, downtown and Main Street area plan. And so then we are changing,
112 and 132 is coming off.
just trying to, see, yeah, that would come off, but it would also be, just trying to see here where I put it in here. Because right now it's C2 secondary commercial, which is, yeah, so then we just change to C1, downtown commercial mixed use.
Okay, any questions or comments from council? Councilor Busk?
Make a motion that bylaw 07-2021 to amend the land use map of downtown Main Street area plan figure 4 by redesignating said addresses from C2 secondary commercial to C1 central commercial receives first reading and the required public hearing be scheduled for May 4th, 2021 as amended.
Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. No,
Nope, bylaw number 7, do the land use bylaw.
one more, land use bylaw. One ahead of myself here. Okay, anything to add for this one?
Nope,
Comments or questions from council? Councilor Brandel.
I will make the motion. That bylaw 08-2021 to the land use district map of the land use bylaw 22-2007 by redistricting the following lands, set addresses from C2 secondary commercial district to C1 downtown commercial mixed use district receive first reading and the required public hearing be scheduled for May 5th. May 5th or May 4th? May 4th,
is it May 4th?
2020, as amended.
Okay,
The other two were
2021.
Yeah, 21.
I was going a little bit cross-eyed honestly by the time I was done these ones.
And as amended, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? It's carried.
Have one more comment here. So I was wondering if there'd be any appetite for council if I made a motion, because they are losing 11 uses. Make a motion for administration to bring back a report on a recommendation on adding those 11 uses that they're losing into the C1 district. So I went through, they are losing 11 different uses for that site. So I will make a motion to that effect.
Okay, motion on the floor. Questions or comments?
Not opposed to it.
Do you have, is it just 11 on that list? Like, do you have 11 picked out?
I actually went through and I highlighted them all. So
Is pretty, like there's only a couple on the C2,
yes,
right? So it's more restrictive, but then the C1 has more uses.
It-
So I think it'll be I don't know, in my opinion, just adding those to the C2 would be a good fit.
well, adding them to the C1. That's what I'm asking, because there's 11 uses in the C2 that don't exist in the C1. So if we redistrict those property owners are losing 11 different potential uses for their properties. And so what I'm asking is for administration to bring back a report with a recommendation on adding those 11 uses into the C1 so that those property owners aren't losing any uses on their property.
So Sam, what does that do to the existing C1 and the existing C2? Does it make a new zoning?
I think it would just nullify the C2.
It basically nullifies having any C2 to do that.
You're just amalgamating C1 and C2.
But the point is, we're trying to open up, give these potential business owners more uses on their property. And then we give them some more uses, but then we take away 11. So then it kind of nullifies what we're trying to do by giving them more uses if we pull back 11 different uses that they currently have.
That might have been a good thought before this went out.
I'm okay with that.
You just want to, okay, that's it.
Is that motion clear, Joanna?
All I got is that council asked administration to bring back a report on adding the 11 uses on missed the C1, C2.
11 or the uses that are currently not contemplated. Yeah.
Questions or comments from council? Called the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried.
Okay. So, you guys are on 07/2021, right? Page 58?
73.
All right. Okay, budget. Sure, Ron.
All right, good evening, your worship and members of council. The purpose of tonight's report is to request approval for the 2021 operating and capital budgets. So under the background there, I've just listed sections of the MGA that outline the contents of an operating budget and the contents of a capital budget. And if there's no questions on that, I'll just move right into the discussion. So the appropriations identified in the attached operating budget summary and capital budget summary for fiscal 2021 are reflective of the operating and capital spending levels and assumptions inherent in these documents. 2021 operating budget. So what exactly is a budget? A budget is the town's operational plan and priorities expressed in dollars and cents. It's a supporting document to outlay the revenues and expenses needed in order for the town to achieve its strategic goals. The operating budget covers the daily expenses of delivering municipal services such as fire protection, snow removal, road repairs, arenas, pools, parks, just to name a few. The operating budget is supported by taxation, user fees, and commercial operations. Utilities such as water, sewer, and garbage are supported entirely through their rates. So we took a different approach this year and changed up some of the way that we did budget planning. So we've just kind of given you like a graphical overview of the budgeting planning process. And I'll go through that on the next section here. So the planning process for the budget begins at the departmental level. Each department reviews its current operations, its strategic initiatives, and its service levels. It sets priorities for the year, evaluating the cost versus the value and the risk management, and develops a budget to support these initiatives. From there, we have a cross-departmental review to outline the corporate-wide priorities, rank items based on their strategic alignment. This is a business plan-based budgeting process to increase transparency and ease and allow for outcome-based approach. Newly created this year was departmental visions and mission statements to help each area align with the corporate-wide vision. In addition, departmental work plans were created and reviewed to outline the roadmap to achieve the town's strategic objectives. The proposed 2021 operating budget reflects the costs of maintaining Slave Lake's core services, programs, and infrastructure that citizens rely on every day, as well as new initiatives, economic development, and improvements to current programs that will advance council's strategic vision. The budget focus. So the budget focuses on providing services, continuity through best management practices, increasing efficiency and effectiveness through innovation, skill sets, and culture. It builds foundations for community vibrancy and prosperity and setting up processes and rules for transparency, collaboration, and accountability. Throughout November 2020 to February 2021, administration reviewed the draft operating and capital budgets over a number of sessions. Some key challenges when drafting this budget was the impact and outlook of the COVID-19 pandemic. Some of the topics reviewed this year are as follows here, and I'll just review some of these. So the impacts of COVID-19 on staffing, facility usage, customer service, and delivery. Customer service priorities. So we'll be implementing a customer service charter and standards for each department. Photo radar is the programming delivering benefits and value for the cost. Reduction in speed around town, is that a factor? Additional peace officer FTEs costs and benefits, potential costs and benefits to aid in crime reduction and apprehension. Should we add additional personnel to aid in animal control and other duties? Public surveillance cameras, the potential costs and benefits to aid in crime reduction and apprehension if we went to implement that. Family and community support services, so program delivery in a COVID-19 environment. Other things were town facilities and equipment security, staffing levels reviewed every year. Are they adequate to support the town's objectives in a COVID-19 environment? And focus on economic development, on information gathering, strategic plans and goals, and platform development. Accompanying the operating and capital budget is the town's strategic initiatives and work plans for the 2021 year. This outlines a corporate-wide priority list, departmental overviews, strategic objectives and initiatives, and operational and capital priority list. This is a business plan on where the town will expend its resources as it aims to achieve its strategic goals, combined with the operating and capital budgets to fund these initiatives. Some of the big highlights in the 2021 operating budget are as follows. So training had a $48,000 increase. So the bulk of the training revenue will be allocated to fire services to aid in their training program. This expenditure is offset by an expected revenue source of about $50,000 if the program is able to achieve its maximum capacity and utilization. The additional training in the budget focuses on corporate-wide health and safety training, as well as some additional training required by our clerks that work out of our local RCMP detachment. Staffing, there was a $36,000 adjustment to wages, and this was part of the wage review conducted in 2019 that saw some positions tweaked to help retain and attract persons to the area to make the town of Slave Lake a competitive and attractive place to work. Power and gas costs, always a challenge, and we're predicting another $60,000 increase in the projected costs for the year. Of course, a lot of this is going to be dependent on how soon and how quickly some of our bigger facilities can get up and running, such as the MRC. RCMP had a $28,000 impact. So this is costs to fund the RCMP. So there's a slight increase in the projected budget from the RCMP for this year. We continue to budget for an estimated strength of 13 officers, while a full RCMP budget calls for 14 to 15. Economic development. So the town had received a CARES grant to fund the economic development initiatives. We have the funding and we expect to spend that in 2021. ICE rental revenue has an expected increased favorable impact to the tune of $10,000. So even though we've been delayed in our season here a little bit, the expectation here is when we do open up that given the current bookings that are solid at the MRC, that we should see a full rink for the rest of the year should provincial restrictions lift. Franchise fee revenue, $58,000 favorable. So we had raised the rates in the previous year, and the projections from ATCO should bring in the town another $58,000 in the 2021 year. Communication support, $28,000 increase to support our communications area to provide for a service level change around the communications position. A one-off expenditure for the year, which will be the 2021 municipal elections. So we've budgeted approximately $15,000 to hold the election this fall. Computer equipment and computer support, $16,000. So to aid in upgrading our current aging IT infrastructure, there was a request for an additional $16,000 to help bring some of our equipment up to date. And the last one here, operations equipment reserve transfer. So in order to maintain our fleet, an additional $20,000 to reserve was requested. This increase will allow us to ensure that our fleet is able to be maintained in the years to come. On a year-over-year basis, but no budget impact, the Parent Link program has been closed down. And overall, this saw both revenues and expenditures in the budget decreased by $352,000. But it was entirely funded by the provincial government, so it has no impact on the town of Slave Lake taxpayer. So all in all, the 2021 budget continues to focus on planning for the future, customer service, enhancing economic development in the town of Slave Lake. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic, a plan was crafted that would enable service levels to operate around the pandemic and keep the overall tax increase to a minimum. The overall impact and net costs for the town have risen approximately $70,000. Through the budget deliberation, the town achieved a 0% tax increase by using a combination of grant funding from the province and the use of our tax stabilization reserve. Utility rates will also see no increase for the 2021 year. This will benefit ratepayers during the pandemic while aiming to increase customer service, promote and support economic development, and budget for increasing costs of materials, supplies, and labor. Under the capital budget, so there are 42 projects estimated at about $6.5 million. There are 28 new capital projects and 12 projects being carried forward from prior years, one project underway and one annual project. There's quite a number of capital projects here. I won't go over all of them, but some of the big highlights for the year is the downtown revitalization project. So funded by the Provincial Municipal Stimulus Fund. This will see the Rennie Hall Plaza and Main Street revitalization. So increase upgrading the areas within and around the plaza to make it easier to set up for events. Should see the removal of concrete and grass areas and replacing those with revitalized walking features, as well as installing a walking trail connection from the Big Fish Bay entrance to 6th Avenue Northwest, as well as installing a crosswalk. The other big municipal project we have is the Fire Hall water line upgrade. So the town operates the regional fire services in coordination with the MD of Lesser Slave River to enable us to attract outside groups to increase the training program. We will be upgrading the line to meet the demands of the community and allow for additional services to be run out of the facility. The other two municipal projects are the drainage system upgrades. So this will help with stormwater and flooding mitigation during peak flows. So we'll see some investments in some better water drainage. And then the last municipal stimulus project is the SCADA monitoring upgrades. So this will see some additional improvements with our ability to monitor our lift stations through the water treatment plant. A couple of the other projects. So public yard security, increasing the security around the yard, just investing in that due to the number of break-ins that we've had and problems over there. Will be helping to offset and deter future would-be criminals. Also, we'll be rerunning the sidewalk rehabilitation program. So part of the 10-year capital plan is to rehabilitate sidewalks every 3 years. The road and sidewalk assessment completed in 2019 had identified areas around town. And before beginning that process, we will review that plan and to see if the areas still make sense. Other big highlights there are some energy efficiency projects at the MRC that involve making a number of the current systems over there more energy efficient, such as lighting upgrades, cold water, ice generation, variable speed pumps. So investments in these are set, we are applying for grant funding. However, at the time of budget, we were unsure if that grant funding would be approved. We've kept it in the budget and we will bring back reports to council should we receive that funding. Carry forward projects and underway projects. So the big project of the year that was delayed in 2020 due to COVID is the Glory Land Road project. So this will see one of the only unpaved portions of residential neighborhoods in Slave Lake turning from gravel to a paved surface. Lift Station D. So this project will extend over multiple years. 400,000 is allocated to be spent in 2021. Hoping to acquire land to place the new structure. The other notable ones here, so the government center roof repairs. So in 2019, a building assessment was done on the town office and government center building, and the roof requires substantial resurfacing. So we should hope to see a new roof on the building this year. And the last remaining additional big project is the Sea Lift force pipeline to Main Street. So this is a big force main water pipeline that runs along 6th Avenue. And we will be upgrading that to ensure the capacity is met currently and for the future. So overall in all, for the capital budget, we will be seeing improvements to the downtown core with support from the province. We'll be front and center in revitalizing the area and creating connection corridors to the downtown. Other MSP projects included the water, sewer, and drainage. And that's what we had for capital. So overall, $6.5 million. Additionally included in the report is the operational spending plan for 2022 to 2024. So the operational spending plans include estimates for these years and the projected increase in tax revenue to balance the plan. These amounts are not budgeted figures. They're just here to identify the plans for the next years. And with that, is there any questions?
Okay, questions, comments from council? Councillor McGregor.
Well, I'll start. Probably all gonna go. I'll start. Did you just read us attachment C, the Town of Slave Lake Strategic Initiatives and Work Plans? Or what is that one?
Oh, that's
Or what page?
not attached to the current report here, so we will have to.
It's not?
No.
Okay, good.
It's a 136 page document.
Okay, that's why I was looking, because we have to approve it, and I thought, wow, I don't see it, so I wanted to make sure I'm not losing it.
Nope.
Okay.
So that 136 page document is basically our budget binder where each department came and gave us their vision, mission.
Yeah, that's what I wondered if that's it, but we don't have it in here.
No.
Okay, good, perfect. So I wanted to make sure. So the rest for me, as far as the vision and the mission statement per department, I wasn't a fan. I know it's a new way of doing budget. I wasn't a fan of it. I find that you get so many missions and visions, you don't know what you're doing or where you're coming from. But that's okay. That's only me. It's a new way of doing it. This is my 5th and last budget, so I'll just give my critiques now because I won't have a chance to do it for the next people coming in. So that one, I mean, I could take it or leave it. I'd probably prefer to leave it. Happy to see a 0% increase, which always means coming next, though you're pretty safe to say that there will be an increase coming. There's just no way of not doing that. Assessment, I asked Julie, and I'm going to get Julie to help and Tyler on a couple things there, because as we sent out the assessments, they always seem to tie into budget. So what our assessments meant for, or I'll give you a sec here, Julie, what our assessments meant that came in the mail and how they pertain to budget. All I hear is our assessments went down $100,000, but our taxes don't go down. So those guys are way better at explaining those things than me. So this is a great public opportunity for them to explain that easier than me. Maybe you, Roland, but those guys I know are good at that. I'm not a fan of Gloryland road paving. It's coming up next, but it's in here for a couple $1 million. I know there's people in town, so I could be their vote to not be in favor of that one. That's mine, and others that aren't in favor. What I did really like, Roland, last year, you made a really good one pager. It was so easy to understand. We got so much good feedback on it. Again, if in the next little bit you have one of those or could do one of those again, that was fantastic. It was easy to read, easy to understand for the average household. It was really, really good. So it may not fit in line with this new budget process or the way it looks, but I really appreciated that. And I know a lot of the community really appreciated that. So if there's a chance, that would be fabulous for that. Looks like we have lots of work that we're hoping to get done and continue from 2019 and 2020, which will be really nice to see some of that done. We've done some major projects and spent a lot of money over the last few years with lots of stuff. We're keeping up with the fire, the parks, all of those kind of things, the pumps for flooding. I think, it's as well done as it can be in a time of not having a business run for the last year, not having some of our facilities run for over a year. I'm proud of us as council for doing this budget. It didn't take as long as it has before, but it was still some tough discussions in a world that's unknown. So thank you to the rest of you for your time. It wasn't as crazy as it has been before, but it still takes time to do. So yeah, so as far as assessment, so Tyler, you help, and then Julie help with the assessment you got in the mailbox. What does that look like when it comes to real estate? And then Tyler, if you'll take that one after Julie about the assessment that you have, and when your house goes down $100,000, but your taxes don't go down, how do you keep justifying that one? If you guys could help me out with those two, I would appreciate that.
I know I've got a lot of comments on the real estate side too, when the assessments went out. I've always struggled when the assessors come to present to us, they always call their process market value, and it has nothing to do with Slave Lake market value at all. It never has in my 15 years of real estate. In the real estate world, we look at comparables, and we do house A to house B, same square footage and same age, same condition, same everything. We kind of do apples to apples. Assessments do cluster of houses on your area and neighborhood. So you could have a 40-year-old mobile next to a $500,000 house. And that it is all considered in both of those people's taxes. So it has nothing to do with actual market value. So I really struggle with that too. But they call it market value, but it really is not real estate market value. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, so you didn't really prep us for these questions. So out of my head, I'll say that so first off, assessment is not the value of what your house will sell for. Assessment is basically, there's a thing that exists within the MGA, within the province, that says, first off, you have to have an assessment process, in which case we engage an outside assessing company to do it. And there's a formula that goes into and includes, they do look at some of the sales in the area, but they look at these clusters, they look at replacement values, and there's actually an equalization formula that's built in behind the scenes for the whole province. So trying to keep it low and not too complex here is we engage these assessors. They have a formula that they have to use. It's created by the province. It's standard for the entire province. And that's what they do. The big question is always, though, my assessment has gone up and down, but my taxes don't change. And so one of the things I always struggled with when I got into council is that how I do my budget for my business, how I do my budget for my home, and how I do budget for town are all very different. And so in the town, what we do is we basically deliberate and discuss with our administration based on feedback from our residents, what we want to provide. Do we want to provide a box, a ball, 3 balls in the box? Those are the service levels that we decide. And at the end of the day, we do the research to find out what that box and those 3 balls cost. And then once we have that, we have to figure out who's going to pay how much of each, because we all have to make a contribution towards the cost of that box and those balls. And so we use assessment to determine basically our mill rate to decide, hey, this is how much each dollar of assessment, this is how much each person's share is going to be. So basically, assessment is driven to determine the amount of your share. If someone's house is assessed at $500,000 and someone's house is assessed at $250,000, the one at $500,000 is going to contribute double what the person at 250 does. Now, let's all say sudden that it doubles next year and it's $1 million in a $500,000 house. The cost to operate that box, the cost to buy that box and those 3 balls next year may or may not change. If it does slightly, let's assume that it stays the same. It doesn't mean that we need twice as much money to buy that box. And so at the end of the day, assessment is just the tool that is used to determine how much everybody's share is. It is not determined to, it's not used to influence, where am I going with this? I should have just ended there, but basically the point is that if your assessment goes down, it doesn't cost any less to operate the town. If your assessment goes up, it doesn't mean that we need to collect twice as much money to operate either, and we just bank it all and save it for a rainy day. So the whole idea of budget for the town of Slave Lake is to figure out what it costs to deliver the box that we define that Slave Lake wants, and then assessment drives what everybody's share is. So I don't know. I hope that answers the question.
Yep.
Yeah, good.
Yep.
Okay.
And I'll just add to note, so everyone, I guess, gets a little obsessed with their assessment. So overall, on a year-to-year basis, whether your assessment goes down or up, as long as your assessed property, if you have a $200,000 house and it goes up $210,000 next year, the class of houses that are also appreciating in that area are relatively the same. So everybody's share stays relatively the same, even though your assessed value goes up. It's only if you were to say live in a $200,000 house and you now, upgraded the whole thing and now it's worth $500,000, you have significantly appreciated the value of your home compared to what class you were in previously, where you'll see a significant jump. But year over year, average over average, everybody, relatively stays the same. And the little tweaks come from, well, it's 202, mine's 201, his is 199. That's all within the same amount of range.
And doing this out of my head, I'm going to screw up here and probably make myself look stupid here, but there's always a lag in assessment. So what happens is that your assessment that you get today is based on what physically existed in this
July of the year before.
Based on the value that it was in December or something.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's always this lag that, it usually is a year or two that if there's big fluctuations in a market, that you'll see that delay coming later. But theoretically, typically those things are applied to the entire community and not just one specific household. So we're all kind of growing and falling at the same time or whatever. Some eke out a little bit more or whatever else, depending on how things go. But realistically, you have to focus on the fact that we collect as much money as we need to deliver the level of service. And assessment is just how everybody's share is. So the big question for me always, before I get into some ending comments, communication. So last year we had a fantastic, this beautiful rollout of public communication that we did, kind of explain budget, whatever else. What does that look like for this year, Roland?
I'm working on putting together something. So just with the lack of resources around communications right now, I had a lot of support and preparing that. So we are drafting something that will come at a future date to hopefully mirror a little bit of what we had done in the past.
Future date being a couple of weeks, or future date, we'll see this in the end of June?
Future date in, well, not before the end of March. So beginning of April would be tentative,
Okay,
sometime around there. Yeah.
that's fine and realistic. Councillor Ferguson.
We be looking at including that documentation with the tax assessments as well? Like where do your tax dollars go and all that?
Not with the assessments, because we already send out the assessments.
I'm
but with
sorry, the tax
taxes.
notices.
Tax rolls when we send them out,
Like an executive summary.
Yeah, just,
communication.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had included one, not last year, but the previous year along something like that. So we can definitely prepare something.
And even if it's multiple pages, like last year we had it was a multiple kind of a slideshow almost thing that you could go and watch virtually online. Even if there's a one pager that goes into the taxes and say, hey, for a complete budget breakdown, go to town website and do whatever, like, let's not overcomplicate it. But, that communication that we did, if we can use some of the kind of layout that we had for last year, like to Councillor McGregor's comments, I thought it was fantastic. People dialed into that. It was easy to understand. It was easy to read. And it broke down things like assessment and how budget is derived. And then, understanding where $1 of your taxes go, those are, when you keep it simple and, it shows the overview. That's what people are looking for. Couple things I will say, a new CAO brings a new feel to the town for sure. And so we had a very different budget process. It actually didn't require as much input, I think, as that we've had in previous years. And there's two reasons for that. A, we've changed the format, and B, our council has spent 4 years learning to trust those numbers and understand those numbers and to feel confident in them. And so, I do stress to administration, when you get a new group, if you get a new group, likely there will be changes come election time here or whatever else, when you do your next round of budgeting, that, they are going to want way more levels of detail than I think that we saw from a very high level perspective. I do appreciate the fact that, I'll first say that this budget is not sexy. This is a budget that in a large way continues with status quo, keeps the bus running and moving in the same direction. I think it's fantastic because I got to tell you, I was quite panicked coming into 2021 about what the world would look like. And the fact is that we had huge fluctuations in revenue in 2020 due to COVID. Number of our facilities aren't open. These facilities don't just not cost us anything while they're not open. And I commend administration, as tough it has been, that, we had to reduce staffing. We had to make some real tough choices there in order to make those things happen. It's been very frustrating for users. The pool all in itself is a whole nother dialogue for another day. But the MRC as well there, these are community spaces that normally we meet in, we gather around, and due to government restrictions, we haven't been able to, and they have significant impacts on budget. In order to try and keep those things in line, administration worked hard to reduce expenses along with those revenues. I will also say the only reason that 2020, we'll get into our year end and our audited financial statements later in April. But the anticipation is there's going to be a lot of neutral accounting there at the end, that things are kind of somewhat balanced out. And that comes largely from government support. We were able to get some funding from the provincial government. I don't want to lose track of that. The public needs to understand that we survived because of that. In 2021, we're seeing fluctuations in our facilities again because of restrictions and things that are put out there. And if we don't see that same level of support, it is going to have a financial impact. So I really want to stress the fact that status quo has a cost. One of the most significant costs is that we're recognizing right now. Like, I've never seen us hiring so many people at the town of Slave Lake. It's crazy. And that's because we've had multiple facilities closed for multiple months or even a year when you're talking about there, and some changes and retirements and things going on within our office here, changing our communications, which I think is great, and moving towards somebody that's physically here, working in the space all the time, interacting with our staff and our departments. I've always been a big proponent of communication, and I love the refocus on that piece. But it's all these things come at a cost. So I appreciate that, when we talk about the resource piece, it hasn't been pie and smooth sailing over here for administration, that it's come at a cost and it's been very frustrating. So I commend administration for working through that. And we look forward to seeing some new faces and getting things resourced properly. I am confident and optimistic should be a better word than confident, that, the world is starting to open up. The doors are opening up. And my hope is that these facilities are going to run, that we're going to get people in them, that we're going to get revenues, and we're not going to have the significant issues that we felt in 2020. And I hope that's where we end up. I also do appreciate the fact that although we are literally delivering status quo again, we're still making some changes. We're still investing in our roads. We're investing in our equipment, keeping sewage flowing in the right way. Once again, these aren't sexy projects, but they have to happen. We're still investing in making those things happen. Lastly, is there a lastly? Because I just never stopped talking, but there was one more I had in my head and I lost it already. I apologize, but I appreciate administration. Oh, sorry. I like the fact that we're, we were tweaking the culture a little bit, that the departments are working together, that they build this budget collaboratively ahead of time, that one department knows what the priorities of another department is. And is there some efficiencies in having that discussion together that we maximize what we're doing? I never think that that's a worthless exercise. I like that our council and administration is continuing to work towards that. That this is committed to growing businesses and opportunities and celebrating our quality of life and making this an awesome place to live, grow, raise a family, and do business. This isn't just status quo. This is a movement in the right direction while still being fiscally responsible and accountable to our residents. So, I just want to say thanks to administration. I want to say thanks to council. New process is always new, but I definitely feel like we're on the right track and at least setting up the new council, wherever they are, for success. And they're not coming into a black hole that they have to figure out. Sorry, that was way longer than I anticipated in my head, but other comments, questions? Anything we want to add? Councillor Busk?
Make a motion that resolve that council adopt the 2021 operating budget as presented.
Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Councillor Gramlich.
Motion that resolve that council adopt the 2021 capital budget as presented.
Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Councillor Ferguson.
Be it resolved that council adopt the 2021 town.
We'll have to bring that one back because it wasn't included in the package here.
So then it would be item number 4, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That council adopt the 2022 to 2024 operational spending plan as presented.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, so next week you'll bring back that.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, we'll jump into not page 92 in our package, the Gloryland Road Maintenance Award of Contract. Kush. You and Roland want to switch seats so you can use the mic.
Hey, how are you?
You?
Good.
That's good.
Good evening, everyone. The purpose of this report is to bring a recommendation to the council for awarding the construction contract for Gloryland project. I'll give you some background on this road project. Town has undertaken various assessments since 2014 in Gloryland subdivision to address road conditions, drainage problem, and complaints from the residents. In 2015, we completed drainage improvement projects that would significantly improve drainage. In 2019, the town council directed administration to initiate the work related to the Gloryland project. Ongoing pandemic last year pushed back the tendering and construction of the project by 1 year. We sent out the tender invitation on February 9th this year, which invited pricing for removal of existing road structure, installing new granular base and sub-base course, along with installation of new asphalt surface and some landscape restoration. The new road structure will consist of 500 millimeters of granular sub-base course, 300 millimeters of granular base course, and 100 millimeters of asphalt pavement. The asphalt surface will help decrease the amount of dust generated and would further improve surface drainage by restricting any infiltration and directing surface water to the side ditches. The construction timeline is projected to take 8 weeks, and the work is planned to be completed in 5 stages. Stage 1 and 2 would include the cul-de-sacs. Stage 3, 4, and 5 would include Pioneer Drive, Robertson Way, and Barton Drive respectively. 4 bids were received, of which 2 were local and 2 were out-of-town companies. The lowest bid was submitted by Canelson Sand and Gravel in the amount of $1,490,452.89 plus GST. The basis of our bid evaluation was based on 40% on tender price, 30% on past performance on similar projects, 15% on corporate qualifications, and 15% on key team members. Based on our bid evaluations, Canelson Sand and Gravel scored the maximum points and is recommended for the contract award. As a general contractor, Canelson has completed various similar size and scope projects in the last 5 years. The project have been located throughout northern Alberta, including MDF Opportunity Number 17, MDF Laser Slave River, Grand Prairie, MDF Greenview, along with a few projects in town of Slave Lake. Approved budget for this project is $2.19 million, which will be funded from MSI grant. Our anticipated project cost would be $1,825,378.18, which includes the cost for construction, engineering, material testing, and additional construction contingencies. With anticipated project costs significantly lower than the approved budget, the project is expected to stay under budget. The surplus budget amount at the end of the project will be reallocated back to the MSI funds. Our communication strategies would include a notification to be sent out soon to inform the residents of the subdivision about anticipated project anticipated project timeline. Open house will be scheduled for the residents before any construction activities begin. Throughout the project, necessary communications will be sent out to the residents and emergency services to inform them about work zone and road closures. The project would enhance community beautification by improving the road infrastructure and environment conditions along traffic movement and safety in the subdivision. Our recommendation to council is to award the construction contract to Canelson Sand and Gravel in the amount of $1,490,452.89 plus GST. Any questions?
A few, and some comments. Open it up to council first, though. Councillor King and then Councillor Ferguson.
So I've always struggled with paving Gloryland roads. I get that question a lot. Why are we paving Gloryland roads? I find it frustrating that we are basically fixing a developer's issue from many years ago, which the town signed off on, because that's the way it worked, right? Like
Totally. The subdivision at the time, developer came, asked for a reduced standard, and the group of the day agreed to that.
Yeah, so this one I struggle with. I'm still kind of 50-50 on it. Our operations department did take us up there and talked about numbers and how much it costs to maintain those roads. So that seems to sway me a little bit more because we are spending a lot of manpower and a lot of time maintaining these roads. And I know the residents up there have a hard time, and the garbage trucks can't get down some of the streets, and So I understand that. It just is, it's a bit of a frustration for me.
Councillor Ferguson.
So have you had any discussions about a proposed start date with?
The schedule that we received with tender documents showed they will mob around first week of July and demob around last week of April.
August, you mean?
Oh, sorry, August, yeah.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
Last week of April will be impressive.
I'm happy to finally see this moving forward. So since I've got on council, this has been the biggest single source of complaints that I've got. With the constant frost heaves and the barricades and people having to drive around them and people literally using their own quads to level out the road in front of their house. So I'm happy to finally see this move forward, right? And we'll have the same standard for roads right across the whole community. So.
Okay. I'll throw a comment in there and say that I'm really excited for this happening, and full disclosure, obviously I live out there, so that would provide some of the excitement, but more of the excitement is the fact that, you know, see, we've been working on this project since 2014. And so it has always been embarrassing as an elected official to drive through that area and to be accountable to those residents that literally, because the council wanted to encourage development and make things happen back in the day and agreed to a substandard base, it has always come back to bite us and bite us hard. And so these frost boils come out, we can't grade the roads, we can't send garbage trucks out. We literally have people that live out there that use quads and blades to try and level things out to be able to drive their own vehicle to work and school and whatever else. And it's been crazy. And so, you know, I appreciate that council took the time to look at this from a very strategic engineering perspective. We were very open and engaging with residents. We had an open house in this room where we had literally probably 80% of them that live out there, because this isn't like 5 houses. This is 50, I think it's 52 residences or something out there, or 61. Don't quote me, that are out there. You know, drainage was a problem. So we invested in drainage and tried that out. We saw some movement in the right direction. But, you know, realistically, had to make some tough decisions and move things forward. And so in the past, what was happening is we would dig out these little spots where they were and try and do them better. And then next year we just move over to the next spot. And I appreciate too that our local contractors, you know, in our last round, when we a couple of years ago, we said we were going to do this work, literally came to us and said, like, you guys are wasting money to do this. You need to do something. You either need to fix it or don't. But, you know, we're not even going to take this contract and keep doing the work because it's not going to work. And so, you know, literally been working on this for 5 or 6 years, and now we're at a point here where we're going to fix it right. You know, I questioned about whether we needed pavement or not. And I appreciate that administration brought that forward as a concern and said, like, listen, this is operationally an issue for us. It costs us money. They're talking about reduced savings up, you know, upwards of $50,000 a year, and literally 80 to 90% of their complaints that operations spends time on come from this area. So I'm excited to free up some of their time and keep them working on the right things, and hopefully free up some operational money as well. So I'm just excited for this piece, this liability that has existed for a number of years to come off the books and move forward, and we can concentrate on other things. We did commit very strongly, though, to residents to make sure that we communicated. And Kush, I know you've talked about communication in here. The only hesitation I would have is, let's not communicate 3 days before we start. Let's communicate well in advance so they know what's coming. As well as if there's any feedback coming or concerns that we haven't thought of, that those things, we have time to address them before the construction starts.
Yep.
Other questions, comments? Councillor Ferguson.
Just make a motion.
Go for it.
Council awards the construction contract for Gloryland Road Rehabilitation Project to Nelson Sand and Gravel Limited in the amount of $1,490,452.89 plus GST.
Any further discussion? Yeah, the most exciting part of this is that it's literally almost $700,000 under budget, which will help put us into more road work here coming in the future. Motion on the floor. Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Thanks, Kush. Mayor's Corner. We had an intermunicipal meeting for the first time since July of last year, so it was nice to see some of the EMD people face to face in this room. How we'll be with masks and 6 feet apart and that sort of thing. But it's great to see that the relationship and the trust of still working together is evident even after all this time apart. And you know, a lot of our stuff in 2021 will be you know, project focus, working with that group. We'll be meeting here, setting up a meeting with Parks to talk about some issues again with long-term funding of the bird observatory, as well as beach maintenance and basically the whole, you know, ongoing infrastructure related plan to the park capital investment. I had a meeting that I jumped on with a number of mayors last week. Mayor of Whitecourt was kind of spearheading a thing that AESO, which is the Alberta Energy Electricity System Operator, basically the regulatory body that determines how electricity is dealt with in the province. There was concern about how much of the impact that was going to have on industry, because they're talking about changing that tariff and can have huge negative effects on that. And so had some discussions with them last week that left us feeling like the impacts were a lot less than they had originally discussed, and they're still getting some more consultation and things are happening. And so we'll see what happens with that in the coming weeks. They were meeting with a number of industry providers to talk about their kind of new way of doing framework, but excited that, you know, that advocacy of all those communities coming together is doing what it's supposed to do. I'm doing a presentation to Rotary tomorrow night where I'll touch on budget, and Joanna and I'll meet on Thursday to do a vlog and get some video stuff out and talk about budget so the public knows what's going on, and then roll in to follow up with some stuff that'll come out in obviously in April. Council's meeting with Treaty 8 on Monday. And they're doing some information sharing and educational training. This is one that's been we've been talking about since just before Christmas last year. So excited to see that come together and appreciate Grand Chief Arthur Noski coming to help lead us through that. The other big one, meeting with the Minister of Health on Tuesday next week. Focus is going to be around the ambulance facility, one that we've been advocating for over 10 years, trying to strategically move that needle and move that piece forward. It sounds like he's committed to looking at the current ambulance and area, and we have some strategic ideas of where we could put some new infrastructure. So we're going to see if we can convince him to spend some time and go look at those. Also, it's been important, and Councillor McGregor has really led the charge as lead on the Tri-Council Health Committee there to support physicians and the staff over there. And so we're going to have some discussions with the minister about how we continue to do that and show that support, because that group deserves it. And we're going to continue to make sure that at the very minimum that they're heard and they get an opportunity to speak. So I'm looking forward to that. Other than that, you know, in closing, like I'm excited that we're done budget. We're moving forward. There's things happening. Like it feels like progress, and it has been frustrating in the last couple of years with things going on behind the scenes in our departments and staff changes and COVID and fires and evacuations and whatever else, that it feels like our wheels just spin and spin and spin. And for the first time in a while, I feel like we're starting to gain some traction and moving forward. And we'll be able to deliver more than just status quo. So that is always exciting to be happening. And I look forward to working with council and administration on doing that for the remainder of our term, which we'll blink and it will be over. With that, I have nothing else. Motion to adjourn. Thank you, Councillor Busk. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. I'm sorry, Joe, we had a problem with our technology tonight. So we're filming this and we'll upload it afterwards, but our live stuff didn't come on.
Tomorrow I'll be able to tune in and catch the stuff I missed.
Absolutely.